Hello, I'm Anis Mojgani, though perhaps you know that since you are here. And I'm sitting in my living room to share poems with y'all. This is very, very odd and strange and new to me, and perhaps it's odd and strange and new to you, but we'll get through this, I suppose. Just like we'll get through, hopefully, all this strange madness that's surrounding us these days. But thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm super excited for this. So grateful that Artslandia reached out to me to participate with their happy hours. So grateful that the presenters for tonight are two entities that I'm super appreciative of. One being Literary Arts, for which I'm on the board for, and the other being Devil's Food Catering. Devil's Food has catered many a literary arts event that I've gotten to be privy to, and they are so delicious. And it like blew my mind and made me stupefied to get an email that said that they were going to be like feeding me for tonight. So if anyone out there wants to throw money at places in Oregon that will give you food, please holler at Devil's Food Catering. They got this brand new thing called Hand Basket that they partner with different local food places in town, and do curbside pickup, delivery, keep their employees employed. It's a win-win-win. So yeah, all right. I'm gonna do some poems. Hopefully you guys can hear me, because I have no idea if you can or can't unless you like send me a little comment or something. But I don't know how well I can multitask of reading and doing poems. But so yeah, let's jump into this. This is for the fat girls. This is for the little brothers. This is for the schoolyard wimps and for the childhood bullies that tormented them, for the former prom queens and for the milk crate ball players, for the nighttime cereal eaters and for the retired elderly Walmart store front door greeters. Shake the dust. This is for the benches and the people sitting upon them, for the bus drivers driving a million broken hymns, for the men who have to hold down 3 jobs simply to hold up their children, for the nighttime schoolers, and for the midnight bike riders trying to fly. Shake the dust. For the 2-year-olds who cannot be understood because they speak half English and half God, shake the dust. For the boys with the beautiful sisters, shake the dust. For the girls with the brothers who are going crazy. For the ones who are going out of their minds. For the gym class wallflowers. And the 12-year-olds afraid of taking public showers. For the kid who's always late to class because they forget the combination to their lockers. For the girl who loves somebody else, shake the dust. This is for the hard men who want love but know that it won't come. For the ones who are forgotten. The ones the amendments do not stand up for the ones who are told, speak every time you stand, so you do not speak only when you are spoken to, and then are never spoken to. Speak every time you stand, so you do not forget yourself. Do not let a moment go by that doesn't remind you that your hearts beat thousands of times every single day, and that there are enough gallons of blood to make every one of you oceans. Do not settle for letting these waves settle, and for the dust to collect in your veins. This is for the celibate pedophile who keeps on struggling, for the poetry teachers, and for the people who go on vacations alone, for the sweat that drips off of Mick Jagger's singing lips, and for the shaking skirt on Tina Turner's shaking hips, for the heavens and for the hells through which Tina has lived. This is for the tired and for the dreamers, for the families that will never be like the Cleavers, with perfectly made dinners and sons like Wally and the Beaver. This is for the bigots, for the sexists, for the killers, for the big house pin sentence cats becoming redeemers, and for the springtime that always seems to know to show up after every one of our winters. This is for you. Make sure that by the time the fisherman returns, you are gone. Because just like the days, I burn at both ends, and every time I write, every time I open my eyes, I'm cutting out parts of myself just to give them to you. So shake the dust and take me with you when you do, for none of this has ever been for me. All that pushes and pulls for you. So grab this world by its clothespins and shake it out again and again and jump on top and take it for a spin. And when you hop off, shake it again, for this is yours. Make my words worth something. Make this more than just another poem that I write, more than just another poem, like just another night that sits heavy above every one of us. Walk into it, breathe it in, let it crash through the halls of your arms like the millions of years of millions of poets coursing like blood, pumping and pushing, making you live, shaking the dust. So when the world knocks at your front door, you clutch the knob tightly and you open on up and you run forward as far as you must, as fast as you can, into its widespread greeting arms, with your fingertips trembling, though they may be. Thank you very, very much. If y'all have questions and stuff during this, hopefully my eye will coincide at the right moment and see that question and be able to give you an answer. But at some point we'll do some questions and answers, hopefully throughout this. This is such an interesting time and experience right now, for everybody. And it's such a weird, hard and beautiful thing at the same time. This weirdness that is very, very different from our day to day, and very hard and challenging because there's just so much pushing down, I think, on all of our hearts. In very, very different ways. This is a very different experience for many different folks. And there's also a beauty to it that I keep trying to lean into and hold as well, just simply in that, and some of you may have heard me speak to this recently, but just that, I think that to be human is to be both alone and together all the time, and to try to figure that out. And right now we are so very, very alone, literally. And we are also very, very together because we're all experiencing something that everyone is experiencing as well. And there's something really powerful about that. And so I hope that on the days and in the minutes and hours and moments where this is very difficult and it is very challenging, you're able to let a little bit of that sweetness in. And hopefully, lead you to a little bit of the light that assuredly, though coming from a different spot than it came before, is waiting for us to arrive at. So that being said, I'm gonna share some more poems. Oh, somebody says you have so many books in the background. Are some of them yours? Show us. Actually, this is one of my roommates, the poet here in Portland, Stephen Michael Meads. He studied film and loves film, and so there's a shit ton of movies in our house, particularly a Criterion collection. So this is one bookshelf of Criterion collection movies. Though I also decided to add some of my own things since I was sharing some time with you. And so the few books that I brought down just up here, one is a first edition of the Amber Spyglass, which is the third book in his Dark Materials, which is one of my favorite series of books. And then next to it is another favorite series of books of mine from my childhood called the Chronicles of Prydain. And then the last section is another series of books that is another favorite series of books of mine from my childhood, is Madeleine L'Engle's Wrinkle in Time. So yeah. I'm going to share some poems. But I first also wanted to thank Literary Arts. I thanked Devil's Food Catering, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Literary Arts as well, to make sure that I did not forget that. This is an organization that's very, very dear to my heart. I first got introduced to them back in 2007, 2006, when I did Writers in the School. And they're such a wonderful and wonderfully supporting organization for writers and readers and the youth of Portland. Even amongst all this kind of strange challenges that are now before us, they've done a really remarkable job of pivoting to see how they can continue doing the work that they do in our communities. One of which is this really wonderful thing called Virtualandia, that they usually do a high school poetry slam finals at the Schnitz called Versalandia, and unfortunately that is not happening. And so they sought out 5 writers from the community to put together 5 individual video lessons And so if you go to their website, if you go to their YouTube, you'll be able to access those videos. I did one. One of my roommates, Julia Gaskill, did one. Arthur Bradford. There's 5 wonderful videos. And so and another way that you feasibly can support Laureate Arts is that the wonderful Portland Arts and Lecture series will be kicking off its 36th season, and they have a wonderful batch of writers this year. They have Helen McDonald, Jossie, Madeline Miller, Ibram X. Kendi, and our current National Poet Laureate, Jill Harjo. So all those folks will be speaking over this next season, which starts in the fall and will continue into the springtime. So thank you so much, Laureate Arts, for co-presenting my happy hour with Artslandia. And so yeah, let's jump back into some poems. Woo, woo, woo. I hope everyone is doing good today. It's very hot. And all I would like to do today is to jump into a river. And I try not to think about how sad it is that I have no idea when I will get to jump into a river or to any body of water for swimming purposes. But a boy can dream. So yeah, so this poem is called I got really loud just as I got right at this mic. This poem is called Today's Love is Brought to You by the letter John Sands. And John Sands is a poet from Ohio. He lives in Brooklyn with his wife and his baby boy. And John writes these poems that when he shares them with people, there's something about them that they fill me with this light, this power, this magic that makes me feel like I could pay my rent by just doing a brand new dance move for my landlord. And so after I wrote this following poem, there was something about it that felt like it had been written under the shade of a John Sands tree. And so this is Today's Love is Brought to You by the letter John Sands. High-five me with your heart. High-thousand me with your hearts. I know you have many of them. We all love many things. I love biscuits. I love cheeseburgers. I love little pancakes. I've loved more than just things that I chew with my mouth. I did love my wife. Sometimes I would chew my wife's shoulder in my mouth. Sometimes my wife, she was annoyed by this. But still, sometimes my wife did love me back. Some things that I've loved will never love me back. Random racist upon the street, while your rhetoric may anger me, I still have love for you, though you probably will not love me back. Walrus, I love you. Though were I to be around you, you would probably gore me with your tusks. Perhaps this is not a good example, as the wild unknowing of wild creatures is not necessarily the same as not loving something back. Perhaps also because I actually do not love the walrus, but simply mention him here because there's a small figurine of the walrus on the coffee table as I write this poem. However, I do love the elephant. I love the elephant. However, he too would probably gore me with his tusks. Again, not out of unlove, but perhaps fear. I do not love fear, but I respect him, in that he loves me, testing how well I carry the sword of my intent through the land of the midnight farm. The land of the midnight farm, it is a strange and scary place. There are perhaps serial killers and or possums lurking in its darkness. The serial killer may love me, but in no way that I wish to be loved. Their love may involve the removal of my skin and the wearing of it out to the club. The possum may love me, but I do not love the possum. In fact, I hate the possum solely because of how ugly I find the possum to be. And yes, I realize this is a very shallow reason to dislike something. So I'm trying, possum. I'm trying to not love you so much. Instead, possibly just be ambivalent to your existence. But oh, I want to hate you like I hate the thought of bee stings, black people, and beans. I put black people in there just to see if y'all are paying attention. I fucking love black people. I fucking love white people, though sometimes I find both of them to be trifling. Don't get me wrong. The only mother that I've ever had is black. The only wife that I've ever had is white, but damn if we humans aren't a trifling animal at times, but still, I love you, you mountains of trifle and futility, of perseverance and lightness, of incessant rowing towards the sun, even while facing it, wondering why there was no forward momentum. Turn around, look at my many hands, holding up my many hearts and a many high-five salutation to you. Nina Simone, Paul Newman, so many things in this world I have loved. Rising with the sun, sleeping in late. Little pancakes. And even though they didn't turn around once when she got gone, my wife's shoulders. These things are how she made me feel. A nuclear reactor power plant that harnessed not any strange, harmful energy, but rather the energy of the sun, of daisies, golden marbles filled up to the brim. Behind me, a rainbow. The nuclear reactor that I am harnesses the power of that rainbow as well. This is how she made me feel. A great gray stone tall tower rising up out of the ocean. There is nothing around for so far. From the window at the top of that tower, I watched the waves, I watched the world. There is nothing but ocean stretching for so far. From up here, it looks like the biggest thing is the universe. The ocean is the universe. From my room, sitting atop the tower, sitting atop the top of the universe, watching its waves of water move in unison together, I feel like maybe I am bigger. This is how she made me feel. Like I was 17. Running slow motion through a field lit with light, particles of dust moving through the air. Perhaps they were dust, perhaps they were magic dust. Perhaps that magical dust is what I am made from. I open my eyes and everything around me begins to float. I am on a boat. It is night. The world has calmed itself simply to hold me inside all that is dark, simply to rock me gently. That is how she made me feel. The subway chambers of Moscow. I am vaulted. I have giant chandeliers hanging from my underground ceilings. I glow with so much light. I am a ballroom for the trains of Russia. If you happen to be a child that has climbed down my steps to enter my body and you yell into it, those echoes will bounce their way across those vaulted underground ceilings. This happens all the time. My dark tunnels are filled with these sounds. This is how she made me feel. Like I would live forever. Like there is nothing that could harm me. My body somehow remaining always young and perfect. There are cities growing inside my chest. The cities all look like New York in the 50s. The buildings tall enough to scrape the clouds. Every automobile a convertible. The men all wear hats and neckties. The women all have beautiful shapes of color draping them. Someone has saved the baby. There is a parade. Someone has saved all the babies. There is the biggest parade moving through my streets. The sky explodes with ticker tape. Strangers kiss on every corner. Their kisses are what make me live forever. This is how she made me feel. Like honey and trombones. Like honey and trombones. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so happy that y'all are sharing your time with me. Very, very appreciative of that. I need to make sure that I'm keeping cognizant of the time, so I don't ramble too much, but I also do ramble enough to not just do poems, because who wants to just hear poems? Some of the joy of a show is just hearing the buffoons ramble on stage. There's a question here that just came past my field of vision. It says, from Brian Rogers, Anise, can you offer a few thoughts about serving as the Oregon State Poet Laureate? We're all very excited to have you in this position, as well as the previous Poet Laureate, Kim Stafford. Brian, I am tremendously excited about this. Excited, humbled, very much warmed. One of the very sweet things that has come as a result of it, of just the outpouring of happy tidings from people about being appointed to this position, and that feels just really good. It's a little bit overwhelming. particularly during the time that we're in. So much of the position in the past traditionally has been a lot of traveling, and currently I won't be able to do that. And so it's me kind of switching gears from my day to day to welcoming these responsibilities into my life, but also switching gears from some of the ideas that I had for this position and trying to see how I might still be able to manifest them or come up with new creative ways of serving poetry to and for the people of Oregon. But that being said, I'm tremendously excited for it. Once things get cooking and going. Though this is sort of like my first interaction, I guess, like as a poetry performance, poetry show, poetry reading with the public since taking on this mantle. So excited, doubly so, to have you guys in my home, so to speak, tonight. So I'm gonna jump back into some poems. A spell ago, I come across somebody had mentioned that it was often attributed to the gentleman Michael Collins as being the loneliest human in history. And Michael Collins, for those of you unaware of that name, is the third person from that first U.S. moon mission. The gentleman that was not Buzz Aldrin or nor Neil Armstrong. And in doing some research on that, Michael Collins definitely like spoke to like not feeling lonely at all. That he got to be part of this team, this excursion, and serve his purpose, and also got to sit there and just like float in space with this beauty, But I also think that there's something so wonderfully remarkable and hilarious and beautiful about that idea of being lonely in space, in this vast emptiness, and being this going into that emptiness with two others, and then those two others leave you, so that you're even feasibly more alone. And I mentioned Michael Collins right now, in regards to this poem that I was about to share, because I mention him, but I don't mention his name, and I use that sort of anonymity as a joke. So I definitely wanted to take a moment to honor this guy who is now passed, but who went into outer space. Which sometimes I ask people if they would be part of the colonizing of Mars. And saying colonizing makes it sound really horrible. But like I in past years, the thought of like leaving everything behind and going into space, I was like, I couldn't leave Earth. I couldn't leave my peoples. But I don't know. I also think about being 6 and being in awe of what outer space was and the opportunity to like step into it. But anyway, I ramble a little bit too much now. On with the poetry. In honor of Michael Collins. This is called Galumphdy's Nuts. Galumphdy's nuts, spine, shoulders, and collarbones of mine. Oh, hold on just one second. All right, here we go. Boom. In my underwear, I write poetry. 2-headed poetry. 3-legged poetry. Poetry with tin spigots and no training wheels. There are flames airbrushed across my back, and I have bare feet. Her feet. Speak up. I walk with sticks in my ears and I'm filling twigs with sentences, filing my nails down with memories. My love, it can shave diamonds. Scientists speculate over it. I come from the moon. Neil and Buzz and that third guy, they walked across my tummy. I giggled and a spoonful of cherub tasted like cherries and wallabies. I write 2 underwear poems. My poems take off both underwears and it's naked around the candelabra in the living room. I am writing wrists and rubber bands on the back of the belly's bathtub, pressing my lips to the shower curtain. I whisper, the goat man is in the woods dancing. The chupacabra, the bookman, the golden nugget. There was a cloud splintering like a kneecap inside of my leg. Buy me pants, mother. Buy me a hat. There are moths in my shoulders. I am shaking. I am full of love. I was full of love. I carved out pear-shaped slices of it and fed a million tired ankles. God sat on my shoulder like a cricket. I swatted a bee like a father's advice and asked for it again. Where can I go when every bridge has wheels running alongside its bottom? But I write poems with no training wheels. I write my skull like it was a color I was picking up and examining inside of my hands for the very first time. Standing at the corner of Central Park East and 63rd Street, I hold an imaginary football like a small child, stand 2 inches in front of a yellow wall and scream directly into the wall's bricks, "Go deep!" And as I fling the pigskin against the wall, I try to catch my childhood bouncing back at me. Go deep! I am a three-headed galumph, a blue giraffe, a water fountain on the moon. Catch me, carbon. Catch me, galumph. Catch me, galumph. Catcher, catch me, Lord. Hold me like a bowl, like how the clouds hold the moon, holding the rooftops of this city of me and my memories in my veins. There is a lonely mermaid, murmuring all day long. She sing, he sing, such beautiful songs. Her throat is the girl I once knew. Her nose is made of silver. Her backbone is a plum. Her backbone is a plum. And should you go and the snows fall, I will write your name in them. Catch a bird, kiss it, and let it go. Thank you. Let's see if there's any questions that have scrolled out. Oh, you guys are so kind with some of your comments. Boom, 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 boom. All right. Well, again, like if any questions surface, feel free to put them in the box or holler at me later. I wouldn't say that I'm not doing anything these days, but my life is very, very different than what it once was. Y'all, so drinking water at the moment, but that meal that I have waiting for me in my kitchen, part of it is horchata, and I'm so excited about that horchata because it's in the fridge and it's getting cold, and it is getting cold, and it is getting cold, and there are a few things better than super, super, super cold horchata. My personal opinion. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna jump into some more poems here. Oh, let's see. Here's a question. What's inspiring you during the pandemic? From Susan One. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly or not. It's O-N with an accent over the E. What's inspiring you during the pandemic? Or are you having creative blocks like the rest of us? It's definitely challenging. You know, I mean, my general process of routine, like I have a pretty diligent routine for my work flow, and that generally has involved for years upon years upon years to get up Monday through Friday and be sitting at the Fresh Pot on Hawthorne inside the Southeast Pals bookshop, and be there from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and staring at my computer, writing, editing, answering emails. And it's really challenging for me to get into a creative headspace in my home. So I'm definitely struggling with this routine. And I think, at least for me, one of the things that adds to sometimes the greater challenge and the frustration of it is that I definitely feel swarmed and inundated with lots of ideas and lots of things flooding in, but without I have all this more physical time, so to speak, but my interior time is very, very different, and perhaps some of y'all can relate in that. 2 months ago I was not thinking about remembering my mask when I leave the house, washing my hands 15 times a day, washing my groceries when I get them, the fact that I don't get to see my friends, that I don't get to hug my friends, like there's all these extra things. And then in extra with that, like the weight of sadness and sorrow and grief that like our world is not processing from these many deaths that are occurring and these many lives that are being heavily impacted. And I'm not saying this to bring everybody down on a Friday night, but like those things definitely like swoop in and take space in me. And so even though I have more time physically, I feel I have less time in my interior space to be creative and to be motivated. I don't know. As I said to my friend Zach the other day, like I'm just trying to be easy on myself, and slowly but surely, like allowing space for things to come out. And definitely like this new appointing as poet laureate has kicked a few sparks into me. Not necessarily poems, but other things, and I'll take those other things right now as well. So yeah, I see some other questions, and I'll jump back into them. But let me do a couple poems, and then we'll get back to some questions. All right. Let us take a sack of spray paint and spray paint over the paintings. Let us dance through Paris, kiss in the shadow of the Louvre, break its windows to crawl inside, to scrawl manifestos over the canvases, write Morse code on the sculptures, unroll a sleeping bag to sleep on the floor, to sleep inside of, tell one another a story by a flashlight, unearth everything from before, bury each other inside the other, feed grapes to the ants, light fireworks in fists of sleeping kings, kill a monarch, break back outside, find a wall to do all these same things, two up and upon against, break the bricks, climb over them, and when the sirens scream, laugh loud, hold my hand, and run fast. Run through these streets with me with a bunch of bottles, a bucket of gasoline, a mouthful of matches, and a pocket full of paintings, and a fresh-faced batch of policemen to chase the fires we are lighting, with a laugh and a shoulder of gold, and the thought that the museums are simply cemeteries, where the dead pay the walls to hold what we have so we can walk through what we once were, where children take their skulls to turn into gardens, to pluck for far fathers and farther stars, that on some nights resemble an armless mother, praying for her arms back, and on others resemble the cold stones we tear from our jaws to fling at the black-gloved riot soldiers, where every giggle is filled with lust. Let us laugh this night away, and I will fuck you like you were a prayer that could save me by having my mouth around you, and I will hold you afterwards like you were the pulpit and I was the sky, and this love that danced between that hardness was that telephone line of holiness that those two things spoke through. Take me into your heart like I was a saint and you were a face of forgiveness, blooming in a valley destined to sink further. Be a river with me, be the storm, the bend in the path, the heat in the south. Be a bootful of banjo strings, a mouthful of chocolate dust, a fistful of written songs. When they come to take us down, to stab them between the eyes, do not take your hand from around mine. Make a fist with the other and punch spines like guilt. Spit swear kiss them like a grandmother. How will open mouth terror love filled? And when they come to cut our hair, to ask to hear penance come from inside of us, you say with me loud and trembling, but loud and clear, I have already emptied myself. I have emptied myself. I kissed regret goodbye, took the hand of another backwards angel, and rode backwards into the rain, watching our footsteps gallop away behind us. When the hangman of tomorrow comes to hang the sun in its daily execution, say this with me. We are apples. Our love is an arrow. I'm unbuttoning my shirt, painting a circle over my heart. Please, just shoot straight. It's very strange to read that poem, I guess this week, with all the things that have happened this week. It's a weird one, and it's a hard one for many of us. Yeah, I don't want to dwell on that very much right now. But, yeah. Please remember George Floyd and many folks who've gone away before their time. It's so funny, not funny, but it's funny how, I mean, it's like, all right, maybe I'll take a moment, but just like, that like all this amazing pile of crap that this world is experiencing right now, and still America's like, yo, man, we gots to stay racist. We just gots to, like it's just bananas to me. It's utterly bananas to me. Sometimes I would go outside and I would lay in my garden, and sometimes laying there in the earth, I pretend I am a carrot. Sometimes I curl under the leaves and I become a head of lettuce. Sometimes I bury my soft paws in the softer earth and I'm a rabbit. Sometimes in the garden, I'm a rock, sometimes wishing there were 2 rocks, and 2 rocks 3, and 3 rocks more. Sometimes as a rock in the garden, I am warmed by the sun, or held cool and smooth by a palm picked up to be brought into their home and held in the light of their window. Sometimes in the garden, as a rock, I have waited hundreds of years, and it is only the wind that has touched me. Sometimes as a rock, I have waited thousands of years, and not even the wind can move me. Sometimes night arrives with a full moon glowing soft-cheeked and cupped in the night's hands, glowing like the skin of an orange-skinned woman in a more orange dress, and the night uses the moon to say to me, look, you are like how the moon is, and see how bright their body too sometimes becomes. Sometimes I wait for spring. Always I wait for spring, and for my love to return like it, as it always will, out of the cold and with flowers on their fingertips. Thank you. Let's see. I know that there was a couple questions before, so let me dive into those. Let's see. From Sarah Koch, if you were going to pick one of your poems to read to my 6-year-old son, which one would it be? Honestly, that's kind of a hard question. I thought it was, I had one. I mean, like, I lean towards, like, for kids, like, out of my poems, just kind of like anything that's a little bit stranger or weirder or sillier. I have a poem called Rossi's Lemon Tree, this little guy, that's like that. That one that I just finished, even though it's serious, it like starts off talking about being a carrot. The one that I did, Galumph, because there's just like, kids crack up about anything involving the word underwear. But like, it's also been kind of amazing over the years to have folks who contact me and write me, sharing with me about some of the poems that have spoken to their kids. And it always just kind of like blows my mind, like what speaks to them. I have a book called The Pocket Knife Bible, and it's about growing up in New Orleans. It's about some other things than that, but a fair amount of it is written from the viewpoint of me being 6, 7, 8 years old in New Orleans. And so I would imagine there's some elements in that might be good to read to a 6-year-old. So yeah. And then this question from Kristen Dissinger: which poets teachers did you learn the most from? I mean, when I first started getting, my creative writing teacher in high school, Jean Gill, was the first person that, gave me poetry to explore. And I had a poetry teacher in college, my freshman year, Dr. Martha Furlong, who really hammered down for me the reality that poetry was going to be a continual practice for me. From that, it's been a myriad of different things. I mean, that first year that I was away in college, I heard the poet Jeffrey McDaniel perform, and it was the first time that I had seen a poet perform live. And up until that point, I had this CD of an old National Poetry Slam, and I would listen to that on repeat. Patricia Smith and Mark Smith, Tracy Biscani, like these were poets that like I would hear all the time, and definitely I was learning so much from them. But Jeff was the first poet that I saw like live doing this thing that was so different than anything that I had experienced. And that was a really huge impact on me, both seeing him live and then his first book, Alibi School, which I read. I'd finish reading it and I would start over again. And back then I must have read it hundreds of times. So he was a really big impact on me. But then over the years, I mean, like poets that I love that have really like carried me and shown me possibilities. Ross Gay, Lucille Clifton, Kevin Young, Marie Howe, Sharon Olds, Frank Stanford was a really big person that grabbed me. Gregory Corso. These are all poets that I've loved very much over the years. So yeah. Here's one more. I'll take this and then I'll jump back into some poems. Question for you: when you're from Chris Fantz, when you're writing poems these past few months, do you notice some dividing line between poems tinged with pandemic and something that might feel like a regular poem you might have written another season? I don't know. For me, I'm constant when I'm writing right now. I don't know that I've been writing any poems during this period yet. But like the way that I approach my work is not one that is usually writing something that is like specifically connected to a specific thing. Like I experience this thing and then I write something exactly right off it. That is not usually how I engage my work. I just sort of roll through my day and I'm just kind of like collecting and observing and soaking up things. And so that when I sit down to write, I'm just reaching in the barrel and throwing whatever happens on the page. And so my poems are built up of just everything that I'm constantly observing and responding to. And so the poems, sometimes they have a very direct response to something in their birthing. But more often it's just a collective response to everything that I'm experiencing through my day. So yeah, thank you for your question. Let's do some more poems. This is such I mean, I said it before. I feel like a broken record. This is so strange, but like it's. I mean, it's cool. Like it's such a. It feels like such a lackadaisical, like easy, on one level way to do a show. But it's also so very different than how I normally do a show. On one level, I mean, like I'll do a show and it's so much of just kind of like this weird banter. But I don't know. It's funny to just kind of like sit in a chair and do some poems and be like, all right, let's see what poems am I doing now? I don't know. But yeah, let's I'll do this poem. So I'm gonna do I'll do a few more. I got time for a few more. Where'd you go? Here we are. So from New Orleans originally, born and raised. It is very dear to my heart. It informs everything that I do. And this is a poem about growing up down there called 4 Stars. There was a wasp nest on the back porch. It looked like dead honeycomb. Outside was a hornet's hive. I stuck my hand out there. The sun buzzed loudly. Nothing could bite me. A caterpillar did. I'd climbed its tree. It kissed me with its back. Its hair was sharp enough to leave 4 stars spinning in my palm. The world spun through my arms and crashed onto our street, so I picked it up. At the back of the backyard was a tin shed falling apart. Inside it, I swear there was a giant sleeping. I woke him and led him humming back into our yellow kitchen. The countertops were always covered in topsoil. My mother, she loved to garden and to collect marbles inside of mason jars. We were never allowed to touch them. I loved the smell of the air conditioner, There was one in the dining room and one in my parents' bedroom. Putting my face in front of its vents made me feel like Sunday. I could bike the whole square of the block in 2 minutes flat. My friends Jalal, Putt, and Rue, they lived around the corner from us. There was a tree in front of their house, too big to be a birch. My friend Semendar, he lived 2 fence hops away. His mother showed mine what God looked like. God, he smelled like my father. Both their beards were black bears. Me and Mom, we went fishing in the park. I caught 2 catfish and waited for them to die. They swam in circles inside of our refrigerator until they did, because no one had ever taught me how to kill anything. In Mississippi, we ate every single perch that I caught. The grasshoppers there, they're the size of an almond joy. My sister, she had a pet rat. Part of his ear was gone. His name was Pierre. I named my pet mouse after a favorite book, Charlotte's Web. She is buried under a rock in the backyard the day our dog died. Pops found him hanging from the clothesline. I cried into my pillow. I was 10 years old. I could fit under the house. My knees didn't care. Neither did the dark. After the tub, the hallway from the bathroom to mine was a dark tunnel, breathing only to swallow me whole. I shivered. I was more afraid of that walk than anything ever since. Even now, there are moments where it still shakes me, but there were times when the night sat beside me on my bed quietly, like it was a big man who had to do what I told him to do. He was too dumb, or he loved me too much. Either way, he had the same smile. I had never been stung by a bee before. Now my whole life. Thank you. I wanted to read a couple of things I suddenly realized from that book I mentioned earlier, Pocket Knife Bible. A moment of quiet to share with you. Magnolias cover the ground. The sidewalk in front of the Ferret mansion is made of bricks, and the bricks are all out of order and covered in moss. The mansion is the biggest house in New Orleans. It's spooky. Its yard is like a jungle, and there's so many magnolia trees on its sidewalk that even in the daytime it is dark. We hold our breath when we walk past in case there are any ghosts around, but it's hard because the magnolias smell so sweet, and the whole block smells like them, and it is my favorite smell. Their petals are soft and white like butter left out. They feel like my baby brother's cheeks. In January, the porch freezes. Me and Shok, we use our shoes to skate across the ice before school. On cold mornings, Mom makes oatmeal. On cold mornings, she lays my pants over the heater while I stay under the covers. I can see my breath move out of my mouth. It's like having a superpower. I feel like Iceman. I breathe on the window and I turn it a different color. I move my finger across the glass and draw a giraffe. You can only see it when there's something dark on the other side. This is also like a superpower. Me and Mom and Shok, we plant a tree in front of our house. We have a new brother. His name is Nason. He's like a sailboat, a chubby sailboat. His name means spring rain cloud. Shokafe means blossom. I don't know what Parviz means. He's just Pop. I don't know what Terry means. She's just Mom, or Carolyn if she's talking to Aunt Diane or Aunt Lynette. I don't like my name. It is only 4 letters, but still sounds all corners and clumsy in my mouth, like trying to chew the pieces of a plate, and no one ever says it right. It means companion. I wish my name was Mike. It is only 4 letters and sounds like a knife. I'll read one more part from here. This is a part of the book where I'm traveling, basically. Actually, no, I'm not going to read this because I suddenly realized we have 10 minutes left. And so there's other things I want to read. But I'm sure I'll read this to all of you at some point. Some of you have already heard this. Some of you read this. So I'm going to read something else. Yeah. All right. Let me see. Let me just see if there's any other questions. I think maybe I can take one more and then a couple poems. Let's see. All right. Oh, here's one. From Jared Murphy. Anise, how do your poems evolve over time? Do you ever find that performing them changes them for you? To the second part, definitely. A rather sizable part of my process, not as much these days, just because I haven't been performing a whole lot. But like part of that process is hearing the words out loud, and that's definitely connected to aspects of the writing process. But then the interesting thing about performing work to audiences, and one of the things that I love about it is that, and I mentioned this, I think, in maybe like the Virtualandia video where I talk about performance, where that we're doing this thing on a space, in a space with people, and it's the product, so to speak, but it's also the first time that we're doing it in that space with those people, and it's the only time that we're doing it in that space with those people in that moment that we are in that point in time. And so it's also practice. We are doing this thing that is not finished, always, never finished. And so each time I do something, I try to allow for the space that it can change, and that there are new doors to learn about the piece itself, and about my relationship to it, my relationship with the audience. And so things sometimes they change very small, sometimes they change very large, sometimes they don't change at all. But there's always the possibility. And I would say that any poem that I've done out loud at some point, saying it out loud to people has changed it and shaped it and revealed more to it. So it's definitely a very large part of my creative process. So yeah, we got 8 minutes left in here. I'm gonna do these two poems. Thank y'all, and then I'll sign off for the evening. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I wish I could see y'all's faces and be closer to y'all, but I'll take this. Some of y'all have heard this poem before. Heard me introduce it before. But it's a poem called Rossi's Lemon Tree. And Rossi is a friend of mine who is was the subject of the very first love poem that I ever wrote. 26 years ago, coming up. I'll be 43 in 2 weeks, y'all. So send me a bunch of cakes. But a few years ago, Rossi had posted this sweet photograph of a lemon tree in her kitchen, on the kitchen windowsill, on her Facebook, and it had this caption that read, "See the lemon tree I grew from a seed, how big you've gotten." And I thought, that is such a sweet sentiment. And then I thought, that is such a stupid sentiment. And I was tickled by that sentence and that picture. And so I wrote a poem about a lemon tree. Oh, lemon tree I grew from a seed, how big you have gotten. You were so little when you were a seed, now so big. Soon you will carry such round and lovely lemons, yellow and dimpled. When they grow too big for your thin branches and they leave this kitchen of mine, ask them not to forget it, this kitchen of ours. It is my favorite room in the house. And lemon tree, when you pick up to follow, please do think of me. I will think of you here when my hands are far too empty and my tongue is far too sweet. I will think of the quiet poem that was your shape. Lemon tree. Please, bring a scarf with you. Wherever you end up, it may be cold. And if it isn't, perhaps you will one day travel to a place where it is. When you're in your coffin, clanging down the river with all the other coffins in the water of the next world, all of them bumping and jostling against one another, the contents thrown about like riding in a small plane, you'll peek your head up to see what the racket is. You'll see the other coffins. Looking around, you'll see nothing but coffins and river and two banks distantly flanking the river, and the biggest, tallest dark stretching above. So dark it feels like this place, big as it is, must be inside some sort of bigger place. There are still stars, though. Wherever this river is, you still can see the stars. And while looking around, you'll see that there are other heads peeking out of their coffins. You yell across the dark, asking, "Do you know where we are?" And someone will answer back, "Nope." "You?" "Nope," you say back. You ask someone else, "What about you?" "No, I wonder where this is." And someone else will say, "I don't know, but it's big." And someone else will say, "Yeah, it's vast." And someone else, depending on what part of the river you're on, may then also say, "Yeah, that's like the backside of Sean Brown." And even though no one on the river knows who Sean Brown is, people on the river laugh. The chuckles subside until a quiet sets in over the laughter, a quiet like you sat down in somebody else's church. And someone will then ask someone else, "Where are you from?" And they will say, "Texas." "What about you?" "Boston." "Boston?" "Yeah, Boston. I know someone from Boston. Kate Lee. You know her?" "No." "What about Stephen Ellis?" "I'm actually in Somerville." "Somerville?" "Yeah, Somerville." And then someone else will yell out, "Somerville? I know someone in Somerville." "Who?" "Nick Cathcart. You know him?" "I do. I do know him." "Yeah? Yeah. Oh man, small world. Yeah, Nicky's a great guy. He is. I hadn't seen him in 5-10 years, and when I did, he had a first edition of an E.E. Cummings book to give me. Great guy." And the first person may or may not know who E.E. Cummings is, but will still agree that yes, Nicky is a great guy. And then it will get quiet again until someone else asks, "Where is it that we are?" And no one will answer. A few people shrug. All of you will look into the stars that are collecting overhead. You'll try to think of someone you might know that lives in Somerville or Texas or Florida or France, just to have something to talk about with a person you never met before, just right now, just to share something in this dark quiet, even though all of you are already sharing the river and the sound of the current bumping all of you into one another. And you'll wonder where the water is taking you, and how long it will be before it brings you there, and what there will be like. If it'll be like here, on the river, with all of us sitting in our boxes, trying to split the dark by sharing our voice with others. If it'll be like how it was in the world before this one. Thank you. Thank y'all so much for sharing a little bit of your Friday evening with me and letting me share a little bit of mine with you. Thank you, Artslandia, for hosting these. These continue every weekday. There is something happening. So at 5 p.m. West Coast time, pop in and see what it is. Thank you, Literary Arts, as always. Thank you, Devil's Food Catering. I am so excited to turn this off and go eat some fried chicken. So to all of you out there, I hope you staying safe, staying spirited, and you're keeping your hearts warm somehow, whether with this banana sun that we're having right now, whether it's just some sort of sweet silence that the streets bring to us these days. But all my best to you. Stay good.